I stared at my phone screen in disbelief, my thumb hovering over the refresh button on my banking app. I'd already hit it 3 times, but the number wouldn't change. $487. Yesterday, I had over $14,000. You seriously mad about this, Ethan? Jackson leaned against the fridge, beer in hand, that smug half-smile glued to his face. Relax. We deserved it more than you. I blinked, trying to process what was happening. My sister Grace let out a laugh from the couch, looking completely unbothered with her legs curled under her. Sipping wine like this was just another episode of Family Game Night. Oh, don't be so dramatic, she said. It's not like we stole it. We're family. You drained my account, I managed to say, my voice cracking. It's not draining if we're going to pay it back, Jackson added with a shrug. Eventually. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I looked at Mom sitting across the room with her knitting. She didn't even glance up. Mom, I said louder. Did you know about this? She sighed like I just accused her of ruining dinner. Sweetheart, you're always so sensitive. You have a good job, no mortgage, no kids. You live alone. You're fine. So that justifies stealing from me? Language, Ethan, Dad muttered without looking up from his phone. I turned to Grace. How did you even get access? You left your info on the family computer, she said unapologetically. Maybe next time don't log in and walk away. Honestly, it's your own fault. My own. I stopped myself. My fingers curled into fists, my breathing shallow. You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be, Jackson said. It's not like we wasted it on nonsense. We paid rent, bought groceries, survived. You didn't ask. We didn't think we had to, Grace snapped. You've been paying for stuff for years. What's the difference if it comes through you or from you? I picked up my bag slowly. No one moved. No one apologized. No one even looked surprised. You're leaving already? Mom asked. Yep, I said, zipping my coat. Don't be like that. Grace rolled her eyes. We deserved it more than you. That's just facts. I reached for the doorknob, paused, and turned back. Then you won't mind what's coming next. They laughed, but outside, something had already started. Hey, you okay? It was my cousin Thomas, catching up to me outside as I marched to my car, fist clenched and jaw locked. No, I muttered, yanking open the door. I heard what Grace said, he added carefully. That wasn't right. I didn't answer because if I spoke, I'd scream. The thing is, this wasn't the first time. 4 years I've been the responsible one. The one with the stable job. The one who didn't need help. So somehow that made me the family ATM. Started small. Grace forgot to pay her phone bill once. I covered it. Then Jackson lost his job and asked to borrow a little something to get through the month. Then there was a birthday gift for their daughter I offered to pay for, except I didn't. They just assumed I would. And every time they made it sound like I owed it to them. You're lucky, Ethan, Mom would say, her voice sweet but sharp underneath. You don't have the struggles your sister does. God gave you ease so you could share it. Family means supporting each other, Dad chimed in more than once. You wouldn't be here if it weren't for us. Translation, we gave you life, now give us your paycheck. I never asked for anything. Not when I was laid off for 6 months and lived off rice and eggs. Not when I skipped vacations for 3 straight years just to rebuild my savings. Not even when I helped pay off Grace and Jackson's credit card debt 2 years ago. They never paid me back. They never even said thank you. You still coming to the family reunion? Grace had asked last week. Yeah, I replied. Should I bring something? Her answer came quick. Just bring yourself and your card. I thought it was a joke. Now I know it wasn't. 2 days after the incident, Grace called me. I didn't answer. She called again and again. Then Jackson texted, "Just call her, man. She's freaking out." I finally picked up on the 5th try. "Ethan," she started, her voice low, shaky. "We have a problem." I stayed silent. "Look, don't be like that. Something happened." She continued when I didn't respond. "The power company came today. We're behind on the bill, like way behind. and they're threatening to shut it off if we don't pay by Monday, so, she paused. So we need your help. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. You drained my savings, and now you're asking for more? It wasn't just for us, she snapped. We used some of it to help Mom and Dad too. Dad's car broke down last month. Remember? I wasn't told. Because you always say no when it's not an emergency. Grace, I said flatly, this isn't just messed up. It's criminal. You're being dramatic. It's family. You didn't ask me. We didn't think you'd mind. You've always helped. That's what you're for, right? There it was. That's what you're for. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake going over every moment from the past 5 years. The favors, the small transfers, the way Mom always said, "You're the strong one." The way Grace rolled her eyes if I hesitated for even a second. They never saw me as a brother, a son, a person. Just a resource. 3 days later, Mom called. We need to talk. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask about my job. She didn't even ask about the missing money. We're planning a family dinner, just us. Come over tonight. My stomach dropped. What's this really about? Ethan, she said, her voice low. You've caused a lot of tension. I caused tension. Still, I went. Part of me wanted answers. The other part wanted to see if they'd even bother pretending to be sorry. They didn't. When I walked in, Grace was already there, arms crossed. Jackson sat beside her, looking bored. Mom was in the kitchen. Dad was flipping through the mail like nothing had happened. So, Grace started as I sat down. Are we going to act like adults or what? Depends, I said. You ready to confess to felony theft? She scoffed. God, you're so extra. It wasn't theft. It was family money. You always help. We needed it, Jackson nodded. You can spare it, so why the drama? I didn't give permission. You didn't say no either. Because I didn't know. Details, Grace muttered. I turned to Mom. And you're just okay with this? She looked away. We all agreed. You've always been the one who could handle it. No one even thought to ask. We trusted you. Dad chimed in. Trusted you to do what's right. I stood up. And what's right is letting you steal from me while smiling to my face? Stop saying steal, Grace shouted. It was for the family. Then you won't mind when the family deals with the consequences. What does that mean? Jackson narrowed his eyes. I didn't answer. Not yet. The pattern had started so gradually I barely noticed it happening. 5 years ago, Grace called me in tears. Her car had broken down, and she needed $600 for repairs. Just until payday, she promised. I transferred the money immediately. Payday came and went. She never mentioned it again. 3 months later, Jackson lost his job. They needed help with rent, just for this month. That month turned into 3. When I finally asked about repayment, Grace looked wounded. We're still catching up. You know how it is. But I didn't know how it was. When I lost my job 2 years ago, I lived on ramen and tap water for weeks. I sold my TV, my gaming system, even my grandfather's watch. I never asked them for a dime. Family takes care of family. Mom would say whenever I hesitated. Your sister has children to feed. The implication was always clear. My life, my needs, my future. They all mattered less because I was single. Because I was doing well. Because I was the responsible one. Last Christmas, Grace and Jackson showed up with expensive gifts for everyone. When I complimented Grace's new purse, she beamed. Jackson surprised me. Isn't he the best? Later, I discovered a $1,200 charge on my credit card. A card I'd once let Grace use for emergencies. When confronted, she shrugged. You said you weren't doing big gifts this year, so I figured you wouldn't mind if we used your card. You can afford it. Each time I tried to establish boundaries, I was made to feel selfish, ungrateful, cold. After all we've done for you, Dad would say, shaking his head like I disappointed him. Your sister would do the same for you, Mom would add, though we all knew that wasn't true. I started hiding my financial successes. When I got a raise, I didn't tell them. When I paid off my student loans, I kept it to myself. But somehow, they always knew when I had money. It was like they could smell it. "Hey, big shot," Jackson would call. "How's life treating you up in that fancy apartment?" My apartment wasn't fancy. It was a one-bedroom I'd saved for years to afford. The requests became more frequent, more demanding. No longer requests, expectations. "Ethan, we need $300 for Zoe's dance recital costume." "Ethan, Dad's birthday is coming up. We're all chipping in $500 for a golf membership." "Ethan, the family vacation house deposit is due. You're covering it, right?" I never agreed to a vacation house. I was never even consulted. When I tried to say no to the smaller things, Grace would sigh dramatically. "Fine. I guess Zoe just won't participate this year. She'll understand her uncle has more important things to spend money on." The guilt would eat at me until I gave in. Every single time. The breaking point should have come sooner. Maybe when they borrowed my credit card to book a weekend getaway. Or when they volunteered me to pay for Thanksgiving dinner without asking. Or when Grace casually mentioned she'd listed me as a co-signer on her new car, just as a formality. But I kept making excuses for them. They're family. They'd do the same for me. They're just going through a rough patch. Until the family reunion. Until I saw my account drained. Until Grace said those words. "That's what you're for, right?" Like I was an ATM. A resource. A means to an end. That night, after Grace's call asking for even more money, I made a decision. I wouldn't just be setting boundaries this time. I would be building walls. I contacted my bank. I pulled my credit reports. I documented every unauthorized transaction, every loan that was never repaid. The total made me sick. $47,328 over 5 years. Almost $50,000. A down payment on a house. A master's degree. A year of travel. My future handed over piece by piece, dollar by dollar. And they weren't even sorry. The family dinner was Mom's idea. "We need to clear the air," she'd said on the phone, as if we were having a minor disagreement about holiday plans. I agreed to come, but not for the reasons they thought. I arrived exactly on time. Everyone else was already seated around the dining table. Mom, Dad, Grace, Jackson, and surprisingly, Jackson's sister Lily, who lived out of state. She gave me a small, uncomfortable smile. She knew. "Ethan," Mom said warmly, as if nothing had happened, "we made your favorite, pot roast." I sat down without touching my plate. "Let's skip the pretense." Dad cleared his throat. "Son, we're trying to have a nice dinner. Can we just enjoy the meal first?" Like I enjoyed discovering my account was drained? I asked calmly. Grace sighed dramatically. "Are we still on this? Look, we're sorry we didn't ask first. Okay? But it's not like we blew it on nothing. We had bills." "Bills for what exactly?" I asked. Jackson shifted in his seat. "Necessities, man. Life stuff. Like the $2,300 at Best Buy? Or the $1,800 at Nordstrom. Those kinds of necessities." The table went silent. Grace's face flushed. "You've been tracking our spending?" she asked, her voice rising. "Of course I have. It's my money." Mom put down her fork. "Ethan, this isn't productive. We're here to move forward as a family." "Moving forward would require accountability," I said. "So let's start with that." Dad leaned forward. "Look, we understand you're upset, but your sister and Jackson needed help, and you've always been in a position to give it. That's what families do." "No," I said firmly. "Families ask. Families respect boundaries. Families don't steal from each other and then act entitled to more." "We were going to pay you back," Grace insisted. "Like you paid back the $3,000 from Christmas? Or the $5,000 for Jackson's truck repairs? Or the $2,500 for Zoe's private school deposit?" Jackson's face darkened. "You keeping a ledger or something?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. "Actually, yes." I opened it and slid papers across the table. Spreadsheets detailing every transaction, every loan, every unauthorized charge over the past 5 years. Dates, Amounts, purposes, all meticulously documented. $47,328, I said. That's what you've taken from me in the last 5 years. Not borrowed, taken. Because loans get repaid. Grace's mouth opened and closed. Mom looked away. Dad stared at the ceiling. We're family, Mom finally said, as if that explained everything. That's your justification? That blood relation gives you the right to financial abuse. Abuse? Grace scoffed. God, you're so dramatic. You have money. We needed it. It's not that deep. Then you won't mind paying it back. Jackson laughed. With what? You know our situation. I do know your situation, I agreed. I know you took a vacation to Cancun last month. I know Grace bought a $1,200 purse 2 weeks ago. I know you've been making payments on a boat. Their faces changed. This wasn't going according to their script. How do you know that? Grace demanded. Because I've been watching. For years. Hoping you'd stop on your own. Hoping you'd see what you were doing. So what now? Dad asked, his voice hard. You want us to grovel? To beg forgiveness because we needed help? No, I said quietly. I want you to explain it to the Financial Crimes Unit. The room went completely silent. The what? Grace whispered. I reported the theft 3 days ago. Filed charges for wire fraud, identity theft, and unauthorized access to financial accounts. Jackson stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. We're your family, Grace shouted. Family doesn't do what you did. Mom was crying now. Ethan, please. You can't do this to your sister. I didn't do anything to her. She did this to herself. All of you did. Dad's face had turned red. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? I asked genuinely. When I lost my job, who helped me? When I needed surgery last year and couldn't work for 6 weeks, who checked on me? When I was depressed after Emily left, who called to make sure I was okay? No one answered. The only time any of you contact me is when you want something. Money, favors, free IT support, whatever. I'm not a person to you. I'm a resource. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. That'll be Detective Reyes, I said, standing up. I told her I'd be here tonight. You brought the police to a family dinner? Grace hissed. No. I brought the police to the home of people who committed felony theft. I walked to the door and opened it. Detective Reyes stood there with another officer, both in plain clothes but with badges visible. Mr. Mitchell? She asked. Yes. Thank you for coming. As they entered, I heard Grace start to sob loudly. The theatrical kind she'd perfected since childhood. Jackson was on his phone, probably calling his buddy who was a lawyer. Mom had her head in her hands. Dad just stared at me with cold fury. These are the individuals I mentioned in my report, I told Detective Reyes. They've admitted to accessing my accounts without permission and transferring funds. I have documentation of all transactions. You can't do this, Grace cried. We're blood. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt a strange calm. Blood doesn't give you the right to take everything I've worked for. Blood doesn't mean I have to set myself on fire to keep you warm. Mr. and Mrs. Lawson? Detective Reyes addressed my parents. We'd like to ask you some questions about these financial transactions. Dad stood up, trying to regain control. This is a family misunderstanding. There's no need for law enforcement. Theft of over $14,000 in a single transaction isn't a misunderstanding, sir, the detective replied coolly. As they began questioning my family, I picked up my bag. Lily caught my eye from across the room. She gave me a small nod, not of judgment but understanding. I walked to the door, pausing to look back at the chaos. At the family who had taken and taken until I had nothing left to give. Family should lift each other up, I said quietly. Not drain each other dry. No one responded. They were too busy trying to explain away their actions to the detectives. I stepped outside into the cool evening air and took my first deep breath in years. Felt like freedom. The calls started at 6 a.m. the next morning. First Mom, then Dad, then Grace. I let them all go to voicemail. By noon, I had 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. I read none of them. Instead, I sat in my apartment, drinking coffee, looking out at the city I'd lived in for 7 years but rarely enjoyed. I'd been too busy working overtime, saving money that would eventually be siphoned away by the people who claimed to love me. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Thomas. "Hey," I answered. "Jesus, Ethan," he said, his voice low. "You actually did it." "Did what?" "Called the cops on Aunt Susan and Uncle Robert. On Grace. Everyone's losing their minds." I took another sip of coffee. "They stole from me, Thomas." "I know," he said quickly. "I'm not saying they didn't. It's a lot." "For who?" He was quiet for a moment. "Grace is saying they might press charges. That it could be serious." "Good," I said. "It is serious. Ethan, did you know they took almost $50,000 from me over the years?" Thomas went silent. "That's a down payment on a house," I continued. "That's years of saving. That's my future they stole, piece by piece, and they're not even sorry. They're just angry they got caught." "I get it," he finally said. "I do. But they're saying you set them up. That you invited the police to dinner deliberately to humiliate them." "I didn't invite the police to humiliate them. I invited the police because they committed a crime." My phone beeped with another call, Grace again. "Look," Thomas sighed. "Just be careful, okay? They're saying some pretty nasty stuff about you." "Like what?" "Like you've always been selfish. That you've been planning this for years. That you're trying to destroy the family because you're jealous of Grace's marriage and kids." I laughed, a hollow sound. Jealous of the life they built with my money? After we hung up, I finally checked my messages. "Mom, how could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you?" "Dad, you've broken your mother's heart. I hope you're satisfied." "Grace, they took our statements, Ethan. Statements. Like we're criminals. Is this what you wanted? To see your family treated like trash?" "Jackson, my lawyer says what you did is entrapment. Hope you're ready for the countersuit." Not one message contained an apology. Not one acknowledged what they had done. The next day, I met with Detective Reyes at the station. "They're claiming it was all authorized," she told me, sliding a folder across the desk. "That you verbally agreed to let them use your accounts." "I didn't." "I believe you, Mr. Mitchell. But they're a united front. All 4 of them telling the same story." I nodded. "I expected that. However," she continued, "the bank records show a clear pattern. The transfers always happened when you weren't present. Often in the middle of the night. And there's the matter of your sister's text messages." She showed me printouts of texts between Grace and Jackson that the department had subpoenaed. "Grace, got another $2K from E's account. He hasn't noticed yet." Jackson, "Nice. What if he checks?" Grace, "He never does. Too busy working. Besides, what's he gonna do? Call the cops on his own sister?" LOL. I felt sick reading them. "We're building a solid case," Detective Reyes assured me. "But you should know this won't be easy. Family fraud cases rarely are." She was right. Within days, the family machine had mobilized against me. Aunt Patty called to tell me I was tearing the family apart. Uncle Jim said I was no better than a stranger now. Cousins I'd grown up with sent messages saying they never thought I'd stoop so low. None of them mentioned the theft. None asked for my side. Then came the public shaming. Grace posted on social media about how some people would rather destroy their family than communicate like adults. She didn't name me, but everyone knew. The comments filled with supportive messages for her, condemning the unnamed villain who would dare report his own family. Mom joined in, sharing vague posts about the pain when a child turns against you, and praying for those who have hardened their hearts. I said nothing. I posted nothing. I focused on the case. 3 weeks after the dinner, I received a letter from a law firm representing my parents and Grace. They demanded I drop all charges immediately or face a countersuit for defamation and emotional distress. They claimed I had maliciously misrepresented our family financial arrangement to authorities. I forwarded it to my lawyer without comment. That night, Thomas called again. "Aunt Susan is in the hospital," he said without preamble. My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Anxiety attack. Uncle Robert is saying it's your fault. That the stress of what you're doing caused it." I closed my eyes. "Is she okay?" "Yes, they're keeping her overnight for observation." "But Ethan, this is getting ugly." "It was already ugly," I said quietly. "They just didn't care when I was the only one getting hurt." 2 days later, I was leaving work when I spotted Jackson leaning against my car. "We need to talk," he said, his voice unervingly calm. "My lawyer advised against that." "Forget the lawyers." He stepped closer. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Grace can't sleep. Your mother is on medication. Your father can barely look anyone in the eye at church. And whose fault is that?" His face darkened. "You could have handled this privately, like family." "I tried. For years. You didn't listen. So this is revenge?" "No," I said. "This is consequences." He laughed bitterly. "You always were a self-righteous prick. You think you're better than us because you have a fancy job and no kids tying you down. I think I'm entitled to my own money." "It was just money," he exploded. "Just fucking money. And now you've destroyed everyone over it." A few people in the parking lot turned to look. "It wasn't just money," I said quietly. "It was trust. It was respect. It was 5 years of being used by the people who were supposed to care about me." "We do care about you," he insisted, his voice dropping. "But you've always had it easier. Always. You don't know what it's like to struggle. You don't know anything about my struggles because you never asked. You never cared. I was just a walking ATM to you." He stared at me for a long moment. "Drop the charges. For your mother's sake." "No. Then you're not family anymore," he said flatly. "As far as we're concerned, you're dead to us." As he walked away, I felt a strange mixture of pain and relief. The family I thought I had was already gone, had been for years. All that remained was the illusion, and now even that was shattered. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by old family photos I'd pulled from storage. Birthdays, holidays, graduations, moments when I thought we were connected by something more than DNA and financial obligation. I picked up a photo from Grace's wedding. I'd paid for the photographer as my gift to them. In the picture, we were all smiling, arms around each other. Perfect family portrait. I placed it face down and closed the box.